for coming to June's open studio visit. And I'm a plein air painter all year, but I can't say I go out in the freezing cold weather the way I used to. And when the weather turns like this, it's really almost as if there's this pull that makes me want to leave the studio and go outside. And the weather can be fluctuating and things can change, on a moment's notice, but it's so fulfilling to stand outside and paint. And that's why I thought this month, just to spark maybe some people who have thought about and haven't done it, or to give information that's new to people, or even just reminders of things maybe people have heard about plein air painting. And I'm not going to start facing me because I wanted to be able to show you things that I use and things that I do. And I thought it would be easier to do that on a flat surface. So I am here behind the camera. So anyway, uh, there is a companion video that I did last year on the different types of easels. So I believe I sent it out to anyone on the newsletter, but if you're watching this and you're not on the newsletter, you can find it on the YouTube video. And it is, I compare 3 different types of easels that I have and explain why I like them. So anyway, I'm going to start off with just tips about the materials that you take out. Now, what happens with plein air painting is if you haven't reduced your items, you wind up having so much stuff to carry, you either don't want to go far, or, it's just so encumbersome. It's just, something that is not appealing. So I'm going to just show you a few things. I'm going to get to this. I actually probably should have covered this up first because I'm not going to actually show that right now. I'll go to this. So let me move that to the side. Those are my notes, so I remember what I'm going to tell you. Okay. First of all, I keep things like this in my car. And inside of here, we've all seen these. Inside of here, I have all different odd scraps that make great little papers for studies. This actually will hold up to an 8 by 10. This one here, there's a nice 8 by 10 sheet of paper. Got different, I have UArt, pastel matte. I have some Lux in here. Lux is a lovely paper. I don't use it a lot for plein air. Some I keep in plastic, just because they've been someplace else with me. And what happens is when you have something where you've got a lot of small sheets of paper in here. Oh, here's some. These are really fun. These are one that I've kind of played around with and done little, abstract kind of acrylic ink paintings on them that at some point they're going to work with a painting. I can't actually picture them with a plein air painting, but you never know. So they just stay in here. So if you can grab yourself just one of these accordion folders here, and when you get the little small ends, stick them in there because it's amazing. This is like, how perfect is that to try to do just a little color study on? You can purpose cut them too. What I do when I'm my travel set, and I think I showed you this picture, I have one of these. This is extra sturdy plastic that protects the papers that are in here for extra protection. I do put in 2 sheets of foam core, nice and lightweight. You can pastels. We have it good in terms of we don't have to lug around a lot of heavy boards for painting or canvas. We make up for the weight end on the pastels. So this stuff is all light and easy to manage, and the pastels, we have to be a little bit more circumspect about what we take out with us. So again, these are a little bit bigger. That holds the 8 by 10 and smaller. This holds my 8 by 10 and larger. And this goes up to about 11 by 14. So I just keep these in the car and I just pull them out. Well, truthfully, I pull them out when it's really cold and it's really hot. I do not leave them in the car, but otherwise, this is how I manage my paper. And what I do, and I'm going to explain that in a few minutes, is I figure out what I'm going to paint first. I don't lug all this stuff around with me. Okay, so this is all back in the car. So using your car as a little bit of a studio space works out really nicely because you can have stuff there that maybe you use one week and you don't use
You
it.
don't use.
Okay. Yeah, don't forget to put yourself on mute. And thank you for some people who have joined now that you figured out to use the meeting code and the meeting number and the password. Um, Buying pads like this works out really nice because you've got the ready-made paper that you don't have to actually worry about. That'll actually fit in that bag that I just showed you, but this keeps it all intact. Again, I would not carry this whole thing out with me. I would wind up having it in the car so I could just choose what I want. You're probably wondering, how do you know what you want to do? I'm going to tell you about that, but I want you to see the materials first. The other thing that I have is I have one of these flat backpacks and I like it. It's fairly new. I used it when I traveled and I used it at the end of last season. And because it's small, it's very narrow, I cannot carry a lot in it. The bigger the bag gets, I just fill it. So this is nice, because I can have my sketchbook and my tools in there. I can keep my paper and other things in here. And so I'd say go the smaller you go, because if you've taken a class from me, you see the bag that I have. I call it my teacher bag. And it's like, you need sunscreen, I got it. You need all that stuff goes in that bag. And that can weigh a lot. So when I go out, I try not to always bring it with me because it just gets tiring. Now, when it comes to actual pastels, couple of suggestions that I have on that. Let me come on over here. Let me get this. Okay. If you have containers like this that you can put your palette in, you've automatically reduced the amount of pastels you're taking with you. If you're going someplace you've got a pretty good idea of the colors that you want. I have one that I use out on the boat, and it's strictly just for boat colors, painting the landscape and the water. This was just one that was used for plein air painting I did when I was away. And these containers weigh nothing. The more you fill them up, the heavier they get. The other thing you want to do is so that your papers don't wind up your pastels don't get ruined, is make sure you have something that's over the top so that it kind of buffers it if it flips over. But this is a really, really handy way of traveling to someplace you know well, you know pretty much what colors, and you've got that set. If you're going with an empty one, it means that the colors that you've used, for your painting, you can put in here. So when you return home, if you want to touch anything up, this here has all the colors that you've used. So that's handy two different ways. And feel free to ask questions as I'm going along. Do not mind. Sometimes what you need is something that's a little bit smaller. And let me pull this out right here. I like the square containers because they don't take up as much room as the ones that are circular. This has some meal in it, some cornmeal. It's more of a grit. And I can put the pastels in here, again, for the same purpose. Let's say I'm going someplace and I know that I really will need an expanded collection of colors. I can put them in here. Again, I would top it off with, this is just a Swiffer, and I go like that. And that's even smaller and more compact. So it depends really on how many pastels are in your main box and how many, these are all supplemental boxes, and how much you think you're going to need. But reduce. You do not have to bring every pastel that you own with you. What you want, and I'm going to show you with this. Okay, this is my main box that I use. I know it's up close, can't do anything about the camera. And this is my Heilman. You can see it's been well used. This is my Heilman backpack. And truthfully, for me, this is a great size for plein air painting when I am traveling in the car. It's a little too big for me for traveling by plane. And I'm not the neatest. These are well-used boxes, okay? So I do not set up by color because I paint by value and color is secondary. Clearly, I have color in my mind. I am thinking of color in terms of color harmony, color combinations that work well together, my personal preferences. I don't necessarily paint local color, but there's a level of representation to what I do paint. So this is, I know there was ones that are in the wrong boxes, but and columns, I should say. So mine go from light to dark. Okay, this is my extra. I have some of my hard pastels, my brush, my really, really darks, the Terry Ludwig aubergine eggplant. And I have some kneaded erasers over here. So what happens, let's say you say, well, I'm not really crazy about the idea of putting all my lights together, and that's fine. You could do it by I usually think of it in terms of the color wheel when I'm suggesting it to people. So what happens, you would have your yellow orange, your red orange. You could have your red violets and reds. And then you would move on to your blues, blue violets, and I skipped right over green. We're going to throw green right in there where it belongs on the color wheel. And in terms of this, I tend to wind up in the color wheel starting with yellow and ending with green. Yes, that's right. For a second there, I'm thinking, what am I talking about? So either way will work. The point is you want to have a variety of values. Now I can see it right here. I've got some very lights and I've got some very darks. And I've got a lot of intermediate middle values right in here, actually crossing over a little bit into both ends. If you're doing it by color, let's say this is the yellow and the yellow oranges. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you have various values of both so that you don't wind up with a whole load that are falling in the same value range. And they can get quite dark. I mean, a yellow is never going to get as dark as a red, or definitely not a blue. But this green right here is definitely a darker value than that. And then it's definitely, we put them in here, and then we have all three of them. We can see I've got a nice little range of this yellow green in value. So that is the most important thing. And I would suggest, whether you're plein air or studio painter, that when you see these beautiful boxes of pastel for sale, what you want to do is you want to ask yourself if they have the right values. Clearly color is important, but if you buy a box and you continue buying boxes and you have a value range that is this narrow right here, you're never going to get your really dark colors, and you're never going to have your really light colors. So branch out. And a good way to do that is just to I mean, it's not actually totally accurate. You can take a photograph of your box. I mean, even if it's not one of these purpose-made boxes and it's your boxes of pastel, what they came in, how you purchase them, take a photograph of them, turn it into a black and white, and you will get a pretty good idea of the difference in value between the different colors that you have. And that is the most important thing. And as I said, I am very much a value painter, so that is key. This is why this really dark, I mean, this, and I don't use black, I don't use white. I only use it if it's like sheer necessity for some crazy reason. I don't have a color that's light or dark enough, but this Terry Ludwig aubergine is a gorgeous dark color. And then in the lights, there's nothing that's really white here. This is a Diane Townsend, but it actually does have a very slight pinkish cast to it. So in that case, what I want to do is I want to make sure I have some. Whoa, that one's a lot light. Here's one. That one's got a slight bluish cast, slight pink, and then I should have one that's a little bit yellowy. Not seeing it. This is why it's good to check your box every once in a while. It may have drifted somewhere else, or I may have taken it, well, I wouldn't have taken it out for any reason. This one's got a little bit of a violet look to it. So that's what I'm looking for is, do I have light values that have a different color tint to them? Tints are colors that are lighter, shades are colors that are darker. Okay, so regardless of how you lay out, color or by value, you want to make sure you have a really nice value range. That'll give you that kick of color that you want in the darks and the kick of color in the lights. And I think I did Open Studio not long ago talking about how we can enhance those dark and light colors that we see by infiltrating it with all these different lights and avoid the white and avoid the dark. Any questions on this before I close it up? Okay. At one point, I actually thought, oh, geez, I'd keep all the yellows together, then I'd keep the oranges, then I'd go on to my reds and my blue violets and red violets and violets and greens. And to tell you the truth, that was like an impractical thing because since this is all in the same value, I can readily see the different colors and I can see the values. So I shipped it away, but maybe some people that, you know, aren't really, are more organized than I would do that. So that is an option you can do too. I'll close this up. This is a Heilman box, if I didn't mention the brand name. And I love this Heilman box. I've had it for ages. I've got two other ones. Both of them are smaller than this. There's one that is a sketch box, and there's one that is called a half a sketch box. And the half a sketch box, what I think I've showed in other videos, it's got like a little section where you can stand it up and it acts as a little easel. So that's a perfect tabletop when you're traveling. So that's my hint on your colors to make sure that you have a good system for identifying the color and the value.
Betsy,
Yes?
I was just going to make a comment. When I go out around here, I take quite a few pastels, but on a couple of trips, I've had very little room to pack, and I've taken just like a tiny box with like 20 or 25 pastels in it.
Yeah.
Or even fewer. And I've been surprised how well it worked.
Oh, absolutely. But my guess is you're thinking about what the values are.
Yeah.
Yes, because you've taken classes from me.
And you just have to use what you have, but
you have. Yeah.
It works out.
Do you find that you wind up using colors that maybe you wouldn't have if you had a bigger selection?
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
And the thing of it is it's more of that interpretation of the scene. So there's nothing the matter with painting local color, but there's a lot of fun to bringing in color, based on, your own personal preferences. And that's a really good comment because I've done that many a times where I don't have a color, so I just have to use what's in my box. And again, especially if I travel, I don't really bring a lot with me. So bottom line is you want to make sure that you have that it's portable. Everything you do has to be something you really are going to just carry. Otherwise, you're making it really uncomfortable. This was given to me, lucky me, I love Great American. An artist was not going to be using them anymore and she gave them. And I use this, and this is an idea. I use this as my feeder box. Wait till you see the colors here. Are they just gorgeous? They are like summer on Cape Cod colors. So what I do is, I have this in the car. So if I go somewhere, and let's say today, although I wasn't painting lupines, I had a group we were painting and there were lupines, maybe I don't have what I want in my box, but I do in here. So I come back to my feeder box and it's like, okay, I can pull this out and that out. Of course, we don't all have a ton of pastels. I'm fortunate I do, so I can actually have a feeder box. But that is another way that you can make things a little bit more manageable, is by not actually taking everything out all the time and have some of those little boxes that I showed you. You could do the same thing with that. Okay, you go into some place that has lupines, you don't have a lot of violets in your box, and you're not really going to use them again for something. I could take these, I could put them in my box, I could close this up, and I could take it with me. And I don't have to worry about juggling around what I already have in a full palette box. So that's it. I love Great American. They're really, really nice pastel.
Okay.
Okay, so let's put there pastels, papers. I talked to you about papers. Go with a nice variety of sizes. For your bag, I showed you that bag. Now, some of the things that always go with me, no matter what side of where I'm painting, is this honkin' big clip. Because what this will do, your board with your pastel on it is going nowhere if you have clipped this onto your easel. That is there, that is really sturdy. The other thing I use it for, if it's a slightly windy day and I have just gotten finished painting and I don't want something to blow away, but I'm taking it off, I can put it on there. That is not going to blow anywhere because that's going to hold it sturdy. When you're unpacking and packing, you're trying to figure out how to do everything without losing it. This. Yes, question? Okay. Bungees.
So where do you get such a big clip?
Oh, I know. Isn't that wonderful? I got it at what's that? What's that hardware store slash, they've got everything in their brother. It's down by Wendy's in Hyannis. Tractor Supply.
What is it called?
Tractor Supply or something? It's one of those hardware sorts of stores. It's got a little bit of everything in it. And it's actually it's called the spring clamp.
Okay.
Okay, so that I have that. And then I always have a lot of bungee cords and a lot of these. Again, I have them in a bag in the car. If it's this always goes out with me. One of these always goes out with me because it's wrapped around my take it easel. And then these, I just have a few of them clipped onto my bag. And if I need them, great. And if I don't, it's no big deal. But I do keep extra ones in the truck so that I've got them. But anything to hold your paper onto your, well, actually it's not, yes, you can use it to hold the paper onto the board if the paper was the same size, but it's also to clip the board together at the end. So for instance, I showed you, so this was today. So there's the painting. I don't bring glassine out with me. It's just like not worth it. It's like, I mean, it'd have to be like 0 wind in order for it not to drive you nutty. So I just take the painting that I worked on and I flip it upside down and I clip it to the board. Now, what I can also do, I could take that same painting, if I didn't want it on the outside, I was just driving home, so I didn't really bother. I could take and I could put it inside and I could clip it. Okay. So those clips are super, super handy. I'll just put that back on. I don't want that to go anywhere. And again, that's just it. That's a pretty big panel that I have, but I don't always walk around these really big ones. If I'm doing a small painting, maybe if I have an 8 by 10, I have a board that's closer to a 9 by 12. But I do like painting somewhat big. I don't do it for demos because it takes too long. But I have all different sizes of these foam core board. And you know what? They're light as anything, and they protect your paper. I slip the paper in there. I think I showed you that, and I'm ready to go. What I also go out with is some sort of a brush in case I decide to do a wet underpainting. If I do a wet underpainting, I do tend to use a spray bottle. So I bring a spray bottle out with me also. Let me move these. So I'm gonna kind of go into a few materials and give you a couple of little tips on exercises you can do. Although I don't actually use this very much myself anymore, I think once you've done a lot of value work, your eye's pretty tuned into it. I always suggest that people have some sort of a grayscale value finder with them. And there's a couple of different ones on the market. It doesn't have to be this. These are inexpensive. I think they're $5 each or something like that. Very handy to have. This is a must. And these viewfinders, which if you're ever out with me, I buy them in bulk, and I just sell them at cost. So I have them for $6. So you can always just ask me if I have them with me. If you're taking the plein air classes, I always have them, but I've sold them other places when people say, oh, do you actually have one with you? So they're super. Couple things about it. One, this is a middle gray. Okay, so you can readily see how the color, one of your paper, but also of your pastels, also the landscape, how colors fall that are lighter than the mid-gray and darker than the mid-gray. You can adjust it here. So it's very hard to see, but there are raised numbers here, and this little area right here, it says 8 by 10. At one point, I'd taken a black marker and kind of like gravestone rubbing, I just rubbed over it so I could see the numbers better. But truthfully, I use it so much that it just came off. So I just drag that down. That's an 8 by 10. This means what I'm looking at here through my viewfinder is an 8 by 10. My paper's an 8 by 10. Everything's proportional. The tips for using it is really being aware of the edges and where it falls in the landscape so that when you line it up, you're always lining it up right on that same parameter that you have for your viewfinder. So if there was a tree here, but I didn't have it in my painting, that would be my key, that on the right-hand side of my paper, I stop painting when I hit that tree. What happens a lot of times when you're first out on in plein air, you're just cramming so much stuff in there, or you're leaving too much space because you haven't edged out where your actual painting scene begins and ends. And it's the same with the bottom. Let's say there was a road or a path down here, even cobbles, and I knew that I wasn't going to include it in my painting, but that was my edge. So I know every time I line this up and look at it, I know I eliminate the tree here and I eliminate the cobbles here, and I should have pretty much the same view every time I hold it up and look. The more you use these, truthfully, the less you do actually need them, because you start eyeballing things and you yourself without the viewfinder. I tend to always start with it. I don't necessarily use it while I'm painting, but I do suggest people that are new to it, keep putting it up there where you're getting your composition set up, because the reality of it is it's really easy to all of a sudden pull that tree in, pull that cobble in, and guess what? It doesn't fit in the 8 by 10 frame you have. Now, if you're readjusting things because you want to readjust the composition, that's different. You may want to bring the tree in, but for just a guideline in using it. The very cool thing about this, well, this is not so cool, but anyway, it's helpful. You could put a little rope through that and tether it onto something. I find it more of a pain in the neck, but that's what that's for, so you can hang it off. This right here is a middle value gray. So if you look through this hole and you're looking at the landscape and you have a tree, bush, grass, they're all green, they're all different values. If you look through here, it isolates the green of the grass so you can see how light it is. It isolates the green of the bush and the green of the tree. So you can readily see how much lighter or darker each of those three areas of green actually are. The other thing it does, which is really super handy, is let's say it was a bright morning this morning, the sky was really bright. Boy, it was beating down on the grass and on the brick pathway. Everything looked light. But as soon as you look through that hole at that brick pathway, it was not anywhere near as light as that sky. So this is just to isolate colors so you can see what where their value falls, how far away from this middle value it is, how close it is, but it really helps you identify the difference of value between colors. And that is super handy. Now, a really cool thing about this is you can actually, oh no, I got to show you this first. Then I'm going to go back to that. Yeah. Okay, when you're out on location, my suggestion is to leave your stuff in the car, take your sketchbook, take your camera, phone, whatever it is you're using, and go out, look around, identify where it is you want to do, where it is you want to paint. And by narrowing it down, without all that gear, you then know when you go back to the car what color paper, what size paper you want, and do I need any extra colors? See, that's why you don't have to drag everything around with you. Go out and sketch first. Now, when you're doing that, it's a nice idea to try the different formats. So you can have your rectangle that's like a landscape where it's long. You can have a portrait where it's tall, elongated, where you've gone outside the norms of a more typical rectangle, and now you have something that's more like a 9 by 18, a 6 by 12. So you've got that nice, more panoramic view, and a square. Now, what I do when I sketch, okay, that's that book. I'm going to put that to the side. I do, as most of you know by now, I do everything on gray tone paper. So I will have my white and my black China marker with me, and I'll do little sketches, just showing value. They're just value sketches and they're small. These little thumbnails are great, but I'm going to click to the back because I want to show you what this little viewfinder does. Okay, I'm going to do a painting. I can set this up. I think that was like a 6 by 12. It's not actually on here, but I know it's halfway through because 6 is half of 12, and this is, let's say, a square. Okay, I trace that. I draw in there. I trace it again. I can do a whole load of them, and I'm then do really small thumbnails using this as my base. I know I want to do elongated. I know it's going to be a 6 by 12, an 8 by 16, something like that. I can do my sketches, and I'm all set with it being proportional. It's little. The little ones are great to start with. I can also come in here and I can play around with little colors and come in and I can see, and this is where you do this, clearly this color part, I already had my pastels with me. This was out at Sandy Neck, so truthfully, we had everything with us. Oh, no, that was South Cape Beach. I had everything with me there because we parked not too far from the car. Same thing here. Okay, I zoomed, not that these are the greatest sketches, but I write little notes there. I zoomed out. That one was too horizontal. I didn't like it in a horizontal format. This one here, I put little marks in here so I can show. Okay, that was the one from today. Okay, so I get in there and it's going to be an Is that an 8x10 or a 9x12? So I move it down. Oh, that's a 9x12. There we are. There's the 9x12. Okay, so just trace that in there. I know that's proportional. So if I go to a 9x12 sheet of paper, that I'm not going to have to worry about scrunching it and changing the proportions of things or anything. It is what it is. It's going to translate to a larger size. And someone had reminded me, how do you take this little thing, you don't like it that small? Let's say you say, oh my gosh, that's like way too small. I don't really want to work that small for a thumbnail sketch. You can take and you can, you want it to be, go from edge to edge, draw a line. That's a little bit off right there. Okay. All right, the big thing is you have to be out the same distance on this side as to that, this side here to that side. So I'm going to come across, I'm going to draw a line here. And I'm going to extend that. And I here, parallel my lines up there. Of course, I've done this in China marker, so I cannot, so you can see it, but you cannot, I cannot erase it. So now, rather than having this here be the end of my sketch, I've now a proportional sketch, and it's just a bigger rectangle, but still in a 9x12 format. So that's super handy. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. Did that make sense to everybody? Pretty much.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. The other thing that I take, oh, there's, you can see there's more of them. I just change them around real quick. You don't spend a lot of time on them. The beauty of doing the small ones is you are focusing on just the big shapes. You're not focusing on any detail at all. You're looking for those masses. You're looking for what's dark, middle, and light. This one here is a really good example. You know, if we look in here, not the X'd out box around the edge, I can see exactly where my light areas are. My middles is the paper, and the dark I've covered in.
Betsy,
Yes,
can I say something else?
sure, go right ahead.
I really like to do those little thumbnails, and I use my viewfinder just like you were showing.
Yeah,
But sometimes I feel like I also need to make a looser sketch.
yes,
And so sometimes on the rest of the page, I'll make a kind of loose sketch, just kind of practicing some of the shapes and stuff.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
no,
that works well for me.
no, and that's a really good point. You know, any of these things I'm telling you, they're just starting points there. And Marge makes a good point. I don't know if I have it in here, but for instance, let's say I wanted to focus in on, this is too small here, but let's say I wanted to focus on, this is the path that I was talking about. This is from this morning. This is red brick. This is a green that's all really highly charged with light that was hitting it. Let's say I wanted to focus in and do a little bit more of a study of what was in here between the cobbled wall with the plants and the brick path and the green in the back. I could just take and I could draw that larger right here and do almost like a little zoom in. And I do that. I like this one here. I zoomed in on the building first, actually, and then I drew the building into the landscape. So whatever works for you is great. But the sketching first. So now I know. So like this morning, let me go back to that one just as an example. So I knew, okay, I'm going to paint that. So I take my book and I just leave it right where I was standing so that I can go back to the car and get my things. And then I don't have to try to wonder where it was. Now, I'm not that forgetful. I don't mean I'm not going to remember where I was standing. Is sometimes it makes a big difference what location you're in for the angle that you got. And maybe it took you a little bit to get just the right angle that you like. Well, that's ideal. Just you'll leave your sketchbook right there and you know that's where you were standing. Okay, let me move this. This was just a little material, underpainting. I haven't really used this much, but I keep saying I'm going to, and you're probably getting tired of me saying I'm going to use it, but I will. That's my job this summer. It's in my bag. And this is a set of gouache. And I'd like to use that underneath my pastel for underpaintings. Clearly this brush is too small. I'd use that wider brush that I had out earlier, so that would work out. That would work out perfect. So sometimes using those additional mediums with your pastel works out wonderfully. You just need to be prepared. And again, that's a small set, so that'll work out very nicely. Okay, let's see what else I had up here. I think that's all set for mediums and materials, sorry. So what I was going to actually do is just to give you a couple of things that you might want to do while you're out there. Now, anything I'm telling you can also do from the studio. You know,
Yeah.
that's not an issue at all. But let's see. Okay, here, this is this guy. Okay, so there's the sketch that I did. And when I'm doing bigger sketches, I have these are old postcards. You know, something, you know, I don't know what this was from. It's a piece of cardboard. And these are templates so that I know if I'm going to be doing a 9 by 12 or a 12 by 16, if I sketch within this framework, which is equivalent to a 3 by 4, I know my sketch is going to be equivalent to a larger sheet of paper. And I think at one point I did something on how do you go bigger? Well, you go bigger by keeping everything proportional. So if I did this on just, you know, any old rectangle size that I drew and didn't pay attention to the size, and then I went to a sheet of 12 by 16, I'd have to redesign it because the original little sketch was not proportional to a 12 by 16. So I have for 3 by 4. These are the most common ones. These sheets here are really all perfect for plein air painting, especially these 6 by 8, 8 by 8s. If you want to do a lot of little ones, great way to introduce yourself to pastel painting. Plein air is just, you know, keep it small and manageable. Same thing goes with a 4 by 5, and those are your equivalent sizes. This would be really fun to do, and I have done some larger ones, plein air, and I tend to just go once. Occasionally, I'll go to a place twice so that I can finish it. I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to plein air, and I don't really do a lot to them when I come home, if anything at all. So 16 by 20, I really have to have my wits about me to be able to get that finished because you have a 2 hour window. Otherwise, what happens, the light changes a lot. Okay, it's a misty day. There's not a lot of shadows and light. That's a little different. Maybe you're not going to have to play chasing the clouds in the shadows. But on a sunny day, maybe a 2 hour window. So these are super handy. So for instance, this little sketch here, okay, 3 by 4, you can see I kind of went above and below because I was playing around with, I wound up having the center right here, and that's where I had my cloud. So I wanted to move it up and down. You can manage all those things in your sketch rather than trying to draw and redraw on your pastel paper. I tend to write down, and this is another thing I'd say as a little tip for how to prep to paint. Write down what the weather's like. Okay, so that's the date. This would have been April 27th. It was cool, overcast, cloudy, pops of light. Okay, so that gives me an idea when I look at the sketch later on, and maybe I am going to do something, or maybe just as a nice little reminder of what the day was actually like. And I wrote down an idea for a color that I wanted to use there. What I then did is, without adding, it's not the exact same scene at all. I just did a quick little color study. What would that look like on a warm, this is pastel matte, and I believe this is the sienna color, most likely, not positive. Again, you're just quickly getting it in. You're not angsting over the details and you know, you want to get the shapes and the values, you know, are these colors going to work together? Play around. And you don't have to expend a lot of energy on these in terms of time. It's just the energy of looking at the scene and choosing colors that are going to bring forth that feeling that you had here. This one here feels like it's cloudy. It feels like it's getting a little warm because of that warm undertone in the paper underneath. Unfortunately, I did not write any notes, so I don't know what it is. Let's see. I want to make sure I go the right direction. Right here, I showed you that one. Okay, and that one. There we go. Okay, I think that was it in this book I was going to show you. Let me just do a quick little. There was one that I had a whole experiment of the colors I was going to use on it. I thought I clipped it. Well, I'll just use this one as an example. Same sort of idea. This is at South Cape. Again, did the sketches when I had my pastels with me. Then what I did is I went in and added the colors and make the little swatches over here to test them first. You know, that aqua, as much as you'll always have to make a swatch test because the color you pick up doesn't necessarily look the same when you make a mark. So this tells me the sun's behind me. It's windy blue skies with cumulus clouds, a bank on the horizon, and it was high 60s. And I was write down the location. I did not write down the date. So I have to pay attention. Okay, I think that's it. And sometimes I just do that was the tree in Yarmouth at the in Yarmouthport behind the was that Jediah Baker House? The one over with the old Yarmouth Historical Society, that Weeping Beach, that really ancient beach. So that was the sketch for that. And so you can go out, I'm showing you some of the stuff that I use. Again, sunny, breezy. I didn't do any lights in here. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe it was sunny, so I should have had some lights in there. So clearly I got distracted and didn't do that. So there, so you can take that as just another way of jotting down your ideas at the scene. What is it that attracted you in the first place? Usually for me, it's going to be the lights and the shadows and maybe sometimes objects. I think the bottom line really is not to angst over copying what's in front of you. It's supposed to be your interpretation of the scene. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I didn't forget to show you these things. This is that non-skid stuff. I think I've showed you this before. That's great when you're out plein air. It stops things from shifting around. For dust catchers, this is just the side of a blick box. Okay. I put it on my easel like that. I bungee it with my bungees so that it holds up there. I could certainly use my clip too. My paper and my boards sit here, and I've got this for my dust catcher. Because without the dust catcher, when I use my take it easel, everything would just fall onto the pastels in the box, and I don't want that. And then that just folds up, and then all I have to do is put that. And truthfully, usually I do one the beginning of the season, and it lasts me till the next year. So it's perfect, and you're not messing around with aluminum foil and something that's going to float away or rip or whatever. Side of a box, that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this so that I'm looking up. Oh my God, my studio is really a mess, but I think I say that every time I do this, but let me just go like this, move it out. And I'm going to move this up a little bit. And I'll answer some questions. Okay, there we go. And let me go like this. Oh, that's a plein air over my shoulder there. And it's probably going to be a little bit dark. So let me turn the light on because I didn't have the lights on in case it was too. Now, it's funny. I think I showed you the photograph of this here. And, I'm just going to adjust the light on this for just a minute and straighten myself up so I don't look tipsy.
I think it was on your email.
Yes, it was. And I forgot to tell the really cool story about it. Oh my gosh, this thing just. Here we go. So the cool story about it, while I'm setting this up, and I'll go back, actually, maybe if I stand over here, it won't feel so dark. So what happened last year, we were at this location and I started the painting. This is a 12 by 18, and I started it quite ambitiously, knowing that I could see storm clouds. So as the storm clouds got closer, I was realizing like, yeah, you bit off too much. There's no way you're going to get this finished because you can see them moving in on me. And which I could have gotten it finished if it was an 8 by 10 or 9 by 12, not this size. So what happened was it did get rained on. And it was nowhere near this finished. It was really the base. I had the underpainting in, and I'd started blocking in maybe some of the color in the trees in the background. And we just went there last year. And I thought, well, I mean, last week. So I said, oh, that's great. I'll bring the painting with me. So I started this time last year. We were back again last week, and I more or less finished it. So if you have a painting that has gotten interrupted by weather or any other thing, hang on to it. I that's where the purest part of me is. I don't necessarily want to pull out the photograph. I have a billion photographs of this building because I've painted all around it. I've painted it I don't know how many times. I like painting it right then and there. So for me, looking at a photograph and finishing it really was not something I was interested in doing. Returning this year and finishing it felt far more successful just in the eye. Sometimes they're just painting things just because, it's there's something special about it, or, in the case of this building, every time you drive into this golf course, I don't golf, Steve does. We drive into this golf course, that's the view you have of the inn that we stay at. So so I got finished a year later. So anyway, just wanted to touch base if people had questions, and I'm just going to check my notes in case there was an awful lot I was sharing there. If there was anything else. No, I think basically the gist of what was the point I was trying to make is when it comes to the actual painting, which is why those pre-sketches help so much, is the fact that you're there to really interpret that scene. So if you need to change things in the composition that's there that make it better, do it. The colors, if you want to use colors that are outside the realm of reality, do it. By having that opportunity before you actually start to paint to just play around with things kind of frees you up a little bit to feel like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good in that little sketch. I think I can try that in the big one. And if you're someone who likes to dive right in, just have that, spare sheet of paper on the side or your sketchbook and play around with, colors both on the painting and in the sketchbook so that you don't wind up feeling like the plein air is not, for me, the opportunity to copy a scene, to act like I'm a human camera. What I'm trying to do is interpret that scene. And by, really playing with color, playing with value, looking at my composition and trying to bring a little bit more of the personal connection that I see, I think that's what I like the most about plein air. And truthfully, I have plein air paintings that are never going to see the light of day, but I had an awful lot of fun doing them. Doesn't mean they're all going to be what I call frame-worthy paintings, but I have really strong memories, stronger memories of painting on location than I do of painting in the studio. You think of it though, you're standing there and you are for 1, 2, 2.5, 3 hours, whatever, staring at this scene, interpreting this scene, working on the composition for the scene, the colors for the scene. You're really engaged with that on a far different level than you are when you use photographs. Because you see things differently. Once you're outside, everything looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have a camera that is actually kind of flattened the colors a little bit, made the darks too dark and the lights too light, and you get a chance to play around. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'm more than happy to
Yes,
answer
very
any
helpful.
questions.
So when do you think the next, will it be next week somewhere?
Yes,
Okay.
the plein air classes are Thursday mornings. There are some Thursdays I can't do. The
Yeah.
following Thursday, I'm actually in a workshop. I'm the student in a workshop. I'm taking one, but normally it's every Thursday morning, and on occasion I've switched it to another day. But truthfully, the way the week goes, people keep Thursday mornings open if they're interested. So I try not to shift that. So Tuesdays you get the location. And
Okay,
you just let me know by Wednesday night if you're coming. And then Thursday, we meet up at the location and I send a pretty helpful sheet that tells you everything from the parking to the restroom facilities, suggestions of colors to bring, what the lesson may be about. Oh yeah, and accessibility. So if someone really needs locations where they're gonna paint close to the car or near their car, so they don't have to go hiking off too far. I also have a thing about accessibility, so you know how easy it is to get around the property. Because sometimes some people can't walk on sand as well as, maybe they used to, so I can give some suggestions.
okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and again, though, like Katie, I've got you anyway, but if anybody else is listening and they're interested, you just have to email me and I put you on the list, because I do not send that out to the whole email group. I just send it out to
okay,
people that are interested. Okay?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So keep me on your list if you would.
Yep, I got you on the list. No
Okay.
deal.
Okay.
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 All right,
Any
thank
other-
you so much.
Any other questions or comments or is there something that you use or do when you're out there that you really think has helped you with your plein air painting?
Okay.
I know Marge just shared some things. Is there anybody else or?
Have to think about that.
I just need to get out there.
Betsy, I
Um,
have a question about easels.
Yes,
I need to buy a new easel because I can't
Okay.
find a piece of the one that I have. And
Okay.
how do I access that? Did you send out a newsletter or?
yes. How about this? I did in the, not this last newsletter, the one before, I did include it because I wound up not doing May open studio like I'm doing now. So what I did is I sent out that video again.
Oh, okay, so it was in
But
May.
if you can't find it, it's right
All
on my
right.
YouTube video, YouTube channel, or send me an email and I'll just send it to you. That's
Okay,
not an
great.
issue.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no trouble at all. Yeah, because and easels are personal preference, I mean, my
Yeah.
personal preference is to have things that I can manage and that are not too encumbersome and heavy. Now,
Right, some of them just
my
seem so
favorite
heavy.
easel, some people look at and they say, oh my God, but it doesn't
Yeah.
weigh anything. I use the rifle strap and it's just on my back and it's great. I
Right.
love it.
Right.
So yeah. Any other questions? Comments?
Just
Well,
want to say thank you. It's good to see you.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
hopefully I'll see some of you outside painting, whether you're with me or with somebody else, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It is a
Okay.
lot of fun. Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Betsy.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.